in the world are the mythical geek girls? Where in the world are the mythical geek girls? Where in the world are the mythical geek girls?
Where are they? Geek girls?
Are they? Wait, hold on. No,
I think I found. Oh,
they're on Toronto Island.
Oh no, wait, that's a turkey.
They're in the Baltics.
Oh, that's Florida. Wait, that's the Geek Boys.
That's a crocodile.
Maybe the UAE.
That's a Toro. That's Ocean Pacific.
We're taking it away from him now. In addition to obviously all having grown up watching Carmen Sandiego, we know something. Not where she is, but we do know where ladies that like to dress like her are.
Ah.
Yes.
Where might that be?
Well, here's the thing. Women, really, really, really intensely geeky women, tend to not be into a 100% overlap of the really, really intensely geeky things that guys are into. There is a little bit of a divergence. There's a whole lot of overlap. We all go to the same big budget comic book movies. We tend to all go to conventions and things like that. But once we get there, there's a little bit of gender diversification about what's going on. So for those of you that claim that there are only fake geek girls or no geek girls at all, here's a little crash course in places you can find them. I'm telling you this for two reasons. First off, diversity is a good thing. Acknowledging that people that are into things that are different from you but are still part of your umbrella subculture is good. And second, we have an awful lot of male viewers who would love to see a list of exactly where to find ladies that might be interested in the same things that they are. You're married.
Oh, yeah.
You put that down.
This is for me!
So, things that women are into. Now, you actually picked up on one in a recent episode very, very clearly that even I was like, I can't believe that I missed this.
CW, yeah. I was like, wait, what did I do? That was good. But yeah, CW, television for women, most abs per capita.
It's true. CW and Supernatural, I would say.
Yeah.
I find that women in general are not, again, none of this is 100%. This is painting with broad brushes, everybody. But women seem to be into more of the TV shows and less of the movies. Yeah. And I think that's because there are female characters on the TV shows. It's not like one of those DC 52 things where like, hey, I hear that they're doing like crazy things over at Marvel, but we have a character that everybody loves that happens to have a vagina, so we can't put her in a movie, because that would be scary.
Oh, Warner Brothers.
I know.
Even the name is sexist.
Maybe it's just also the appeal of like serializations.
It could be. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. So we're going to go through a quick list and then where you find some of these ladies. Number one, everybody's going to say it together. We all know it. Cosplay!
Cosplay!
Yes, you may have noticed there are more women in cosplay than men at any convention or at any fanish gathering ever. We've discussed this before on the show. It bears bringing up again. We're kind of taught from an early age, like, Disney princesses are awesome, and then you hit 8 or 10, and you're not supposed to dress up like a princess anymore, and then you go to a convention, you're like, I can dress up as anything I want to be. It's wonderful.
It is really awesome.
Yeah. Very few men are into it, and if you're a guy that is willing to learn to sew, you will find lady friends. I can guarantee you of this. Honestly, this is one of the reasons why, like, I don't know a whole lot of dudes in steampunk who make their own stuff as opposed to just buying it that are single. Like, seriously, those guys that are just really making their own costumes elaborately and helping their lady friends make theirs, they do really well in the convention scene, shall we say. Other things that the women are really into, knitting and fiber arts. Man, there's a huge subculture of women. Ravelry.com, for example, which is, I want to say, something like over 90% female with Ravelry, is all about, like, knitting up the nerdy Doctor Who scarves, making little crocheted amiguri, anything with the fiber arts. I'm not sure what it is that has drawn women to that so aggressive, geeky women to it so aggressively, but man, is it popular. I'm always a little embarrassed when I mention this one, but I would be remiss not to. Within the science fiction convention, like the fan-run convention circle, there's something called folking, which is science fiction folk songs. You do find plenty of men doing it, and a lot of the songs are things that Jonathan Coulton would have been doing 20 years ago, but it's a pretty female-heavy audience at this point, and participation as well. There's not as much folking going on at conventions as there used to be. The people that are left doing it, pretty ladies. No, I don't mean literally pretty ladies, though some of them, of course, are pretty full of ladies. Speaking of something that is almost exclusively by women for women and confuses everyone else, fan fiction and slash. Lots and lots of women. Like, men want to write critiques of things. Like, you see a lot of male critics out there of shows and movies and whatnot. And women are like, yeah, criticizing's good, but fucking's better. And I'm not saying
words to live by.
I'm not saying that all fan fiction is either slash or porn, but I would be remiss if I was to pretend that it wasn't a lot of it. Slash is a subject for a whole different discussion, possibly not with these guys. I don't know.
Oh, possibly would.
Yeah. We can go check the chat on Bird Law, man.
About why it appeals so much to women, etc. But it is a thing that appeals to women a lot. Young adult, man. When people talk about, like, fantasy used to be considered the more feminine thing, and science fiction more masculine, there's still some of that. High fantasy, so George R. R. Martin, Tolkien, things like that, is still very much considered like this is by dudes for dudes, whereas urban fantasy is almost entirely by women for women, or by people with pseudonyms for women. But, you know, basically the stuff with porn versus the stuff without porn is what it comes down to, and I'm not complaining about the porn in these things. Some of it's very nicely written, but you're going to find a lot more women into young adult and urban fantasy. Webcomics. Man, that's another thing with the CW that's like getting young girls in. You get a ton of women and younger women really into webcomics. There are men that like webcomics as well, but it's a disproportionate level of fandom. And then finally, Anglophiles, people that are really into Doctor Who, Sherlock, things along those lines. Again, there are definitely men present, but here in the US, it is a hugely disproportionate number of women that are into these things. So this begs two different questions, two completely unrelated questions.
All right.
One, how can you gentlemen capitalize on this to meet ladies? I know this is why most of you are watching, which is why we're going to come to that one second. And two, has geek culture gone so mainstream that it's now embarrassed by all the things that are off in the fringes? Because the big things, like we had an episode about the BuzzFeed 300 question quiz recently, and we were discussing all these very, very mainstream things, like movies that have been watched by 600 million people. I don't think there's 600 million people writing and reading fan fiction. I might be wrong, but I would be surprised. And geek culture used to be, to me, all about being off in the fringes. You were made fun of because you weren't mainstream. What you were doing was considered something that's like, you don't really talk about that around anyone other than the people you do it with. And so when you came together at a convention, it was all about finding other people, like, you're into this weird niche thing that no one else is into? Thank God I'm not alone! And now geek culture seems to have decided that all those, you know, beautiful little flowers doing their own special flower thing are embarrassing, and we want to pretend they don't exist, especially if there's something that attracts the ladies.
Which is terrible.
Well, I mean, how would you feel if I was to say, you know, if you really, really want to meet some women, get on LiveJournal, start writing some collaborative fan fiction?
I'd be like, well, this is my fan fiction. Arya and the Hound, spin-off, Game of Thrones. Yeah, I would not be opposed to that. For me, the only thing that I wouldn't be opposed to, but it'd be harder for me to do, is like the knitting and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I've tried to sew stuff, and by the end of the day, it's falling apart.
You
So.
can hand knit. It's a thing.
In all seriousness, though, you're being much more open-minded about this, especially with me starting with something like fan fiction, than most guys. Most guys, when they hear this list, they're like, that's all stupid. Tell me something that girls want to do that is something that I personally actually want to do. Why aren't they all willing to hang out at the comic shop and play pen and paper RPGs with me until 2 in the morning? And the answer is, there's a guy there with a Dick Wolves t-shirt, and she doesn't want to deal with him. Watch our episode on that.
Yeah, that guy sucks. 0 charisma.
It's true. It's true. So there are these whole spheres, and the thing that really frustrates me about it is if you find a woman that, you know, knits these adorable little amiguri and writes her slash fan fiction and loves young adult novels and has a ton of t-shirts about Doctor Who and Sherlock, I think in the wild, anyone will look at her and be like, that is the nerdiest human being I have ever met.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the people that want to be the gatekeepers of geek culture would not define her as a geek.
Yeah, I think it's really weird. It's almost like the whole mainstream geek culture thing is just like, well, this is what we've decided that other people will no longer look down on us for.
Mhm.
It's like, well, these are the big money makers. It's almost
Yeah.
like it's gotten so popular where people that don't consider themselves geeks
Mhm.
will get into, just because it's like, okay, everyone's going to go see the Avengers movie
Yeah.
or whatever, because it's like, that's the big, it's not what's the big Hollywood blockbuster movie, it's not just, this is a comic book movie.
Mhm.
And I think because it's able to branch out so much, whereas all the things that you listed are a lot more niche,
Yeah.
and so it's still easy for other people to point and be like, oh, well, that's so weird, you
Mhm.
know, even when it's like, no, it's a hobby, and if people have hobbies, it's like, it would be it's like, it's funny how someone will look down on that, but let's
Mhm.
say somebody who does like Civil War reenactment, it's like, oh no, that's perfectly fine. I mean, you know,
Or
it's not-
fantasy football.
yeah, fantasy football was the best example. It's like, come on, guys, that is even. I think that's like one of the nerdiest things. When I first heard about it, it's like, oh yeah, I guess you're a nerd too. Like, nah, man, throw around the pigskin.
Do they actually say it like that? Is it all nasal as well?
It's all nasal. I don't know if they actually say pigskin, but you know.
Because sporting things happen to other people than us. And I don't mean that out of some sort of weird fan of shame. I just mean none of us are in good shape.
My vertical is not that high, anymore, unfortunately.
What about your horizontal?
That's great, actually. Naps. Got that covered.
So, all of this counts as being a geek. Not only does all this count as being a geek, these are things that will get you made fun of, not beaten up, because women don't tend to beat other women, like physically beat you up. I don't think that the 90% of the men out there that claim they were beaten up for being a geek ever actually got hit. I think someone said something mean to them and they ran home to their mommies. Feel free to rage in the comments now. The 7 of you that actually did get hit. By the way, was it before 1995? Because things have changed a little bit since then. I'd really like to hear about the people post-1995 that claim someone actually beat them up for being a geek. My skepticism, it's pretty high. But very few women have been beat up for these things. It's more just going to a convention and having no programming for the things they're interested in.
Yeah.
And having everyone say, well, that's not really nerdy. The 300 question quiz that we mentioned from a previous episode, having zero representation of any of this when you're being that gatekeeper defining what it is a geek. We had another episode, we like to cross-reference these things, so you guys will keep watching, where we were talking about the excitement of the Dick Wolves t-shirt and whatnot. And I feel like the kind of guys that would wear a t-shirt that says, I like fangirls like I like my coffee, I hate coffee, would take a look at every single thing I've listed. Cosplay, fiber arts, fan fiction, young adults, webcomics, Anglophiles, etc. and say, well, none of that's really geeky.
Yeah.
And that doesn't make sense to me.
It's really stupid where it's more or less, it's them trying to define what geeky is, but in reality it's just like, well, I'm not into it, so this doesn't fall into whatever I define as geeky.
Well, it's especially bad because the people that are the worst offenders, in my opinion, are the guys that claim they were beaten up, not necessarily beaten up, but verbally abused and ostracized and treated poorly as children. And now what are you doing as adults? You're turning around and finding someone who you said your problem was that you were into a niche thing and that nobody liked you because you like this niche thing. You're in the niche now, and you're going to find that even smaller niches and do the same thing to them that was done to you? How does that make any sense?
Yeah, I guess
Well,
that's
it's simple. It's a justification for those negative reactions because of what happened to them. It's like, well, it happened to me, so it's okay for me to do it to other people.
That doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense, but that's what's going through their head.
Yeah, it's like it's the psychology of it, which is very counterintuitive. But that actually makes a lot of sense. Like, well, it makes sense for something that normally wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's why, they're scrambled in the brain. So it begs the question. What do you do with somebody who's like that, where they're really not even. They can't even conceive to think, like, you don't realize you're doing exactly the same thing that happened to you, and it was so horrible.
Yeah.
Why would you want to do it to anybody else?
Yeah.
Well, the answer's simple. You just shoot him in the head.
Which is why he's actually out on parole for the show today.
Yeah. So.
Bring a shovel.
He's got an ankle bracelet on right now. So, for those of you out there that are not scared by this list, and that are going, okay, if that's where the ladies are, I'd like to meet some ladies, what can I do? The first thing I always like to recommend is cosplay. It's got a low barrier of entry because you can buy a lot of things. Yes, the hardcore cosplayers will make fun of you if you're wearing things that are mostly bought. They're assholes. Steer away from them.
Dude, love stories happen at Joanne Fabrics. I'm telling you. They happen.
Second, join a local book club, especially if that book club actually says that it does young adult or paranormal romance. A lot of good stories are told in young adult fiction, but these things are, it's almost all women at these things. Young adult fiction includes things like Ender's Game as well as The Hunger Games. So you might be pleasantly surprised, and I swear to you, it's going to be 70% or more female. And they're into all these other things. They also go to the comic movies, they also enjoy gaming, and they don't know why guys don't like the same books they do. It mystifies them.
Spend 3 hours in the science fiction fantasy section at Half Price Books. 3 hours, you will find a woman every hour.
Yeah. Well, more than that.
Yeah.
More than that.
At least. At bare minimum.
At very least, like one that you would want to talk to and be like, I would like to take her to the coffee shop that I hate for an hour.
You make it sound like you're going to dissect her. Like, I would like to take her to the coffee shop that I hate and find out what inside her makes her a nerd.
There you go.
You find the 12-sided die. Ah,
You
now
swallowed
it
this
makes
as a
sense.
child, I see.
They're closer than you think.
Webcomics. Find webcomics that have a ton of women that, really like them. For example, Phil Foglio's Girl Genius, which I recommend anyway. It's a fantastic comic. Go hang out in the forums there. Get it. For those of you that are afraid of meeting people in person because of, human being cooties, there are lots of online communities as well. Go hang out in the forums there and get into conversations about the storylines that you like the most. At some point, you will meet someone you want to actually meet in person that way. With Doctor Who, man, oh my goodness. Okay, I'm a little bit biased because this is my Doctor Who tent behind us, and these
We're in
guys
the TARDIS.
We're in the TARDIS right now. I have a whole Doctor Who bathroom. You might have heard I actually wrote the Doctor Who cookbook as well.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you?
Check it out.
I hear good things. So, yeah, I can tell you from lots and lots of personal experience that I'd say in the U.S. it's about a 5-to-1 ratio of women to men.
Definitely seems that way.
Yeah. And they're not all crazy obsessive people. Like, some of them are like me and have day jobs and, oh wait, I write geek cookbooks for a living. I may not be the best example.
Or scratch that.
Not crazy obsessive.
But I'll say this, even as someone who still has not actually seen any Doctor Who, like, Doctor Who is a magnet for girls. Like, they love Doctor Who. Go to anywhere where there's geekdom and there's Doctor Who, and you're just going to find ladies.
They love explaining Doctor Who. So even if you don't know anything, let them talk their socks off.
Just sit there.
And you
Tell me
be
more.
the one be like, tell me more over some cup of coffee.
Also, you can get it for free on Netflix at this point and get completely caught up with the new Who. And no one's going to judge you if you've only seen the new ones. There are so many easy conversational starters, like, I just couldn't really make that transition from Eccleston to Tennant, so I've only watched the very first season. That gives you an excuse to only watch 12 episodes! Come
Exactly,
on!
because-
Let the ladies talk you into watching more with them.
The ladies love the Eccleston Who. I don't know why.
No, the ladies love the Tennant too.
I love the Tennant Who.
The ladies
But-
really love the
Okay,
Tennant
well, I'm going to say
Who.
2 out of 3 because one of our favorites that we like to have on our show, Kelly Nova,
Uh-huh.
I believe she's a big Eccleston fan. My wife herself is a huge Eccleston fan. Still cannot get over. She likes Tennant. She's, we're a season and a half into the Tennant run, and she's still like, he's no Eccleston, but I like him.
It's got a weird immortality going on with it, and the thing is, there are so many ways that you can meet a lady that's into this. You can go to whatever Doctor Who club is going on locally. The Doctor Who local clubs are more likely to be playing older episodes as opposed to the newer things. You can get on any forum that discusses Doctor Who whatsoever and get involved the same way with the webcomics. You can go to a convention and strike up conversations with a lady in a Doctor Who t-shirt. All you have to ask her is like, so who's your doctor? And that's it. That is your conversation starter right there. Now, if you actually hate Doctor Who, don't fake it. And you shouldn't do that with any of this stuff. Don't pretend to fake it if you hate something. Because that's creepy, and people will talk about you. They'll be like, oh, dude, have you heard about that guy over there that's trying to creep on the women by asking about Doctor Who? Don't talk to him. These are the areas, though, that you're going to find a vastly disproportionate, and when I say vastly disproportionate, I mean 70% female to male ratio. Get involved. If you're seriously just looking for ladies, find the one that strikes a chord with you and get involved. There are even male knitters and crocheters out there. I know that you guys are like, no. There are a few. Ravelry is a good place to get involved, and if you're wondering how to get involved with Ravelry in addition to signing up with it, just go search for things like Doctor Who or Amaguri or whatever, and make nice comments about people's projects. Just say something nice. It'll get a conversation started. What you shouldn't do is get in a conversation with women about any of these things and be like, so tell me why you don't like comics more. Tell me why you don't video game.
Yeah, that's like always the worst thing, where it's like, So especially when it's like you're just meeting somebody, like the first thing they want to do is like insult what you have a passion for. Like that's the best way to end a conversation. So maybe if you don't like them and you want to just distance yourself, be like, oh yeah, Doctor Whoever. Oh, I don't know, but
Doctor Whatever.
Oh, burn. Doctor won't like that.
Now, there's two of them that I do. I know we're going a little bit long with this. I promise I'll wrap it up soon. But
It's important.
there's two things I'm genuinely curious about that hopefully you guys might have some insight on. Why don't men like cosplay or Doctor Who?
Well, with Doctor Who, I mean, as someone who has not seen Doctor Who,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's something that I've just never really sat down to watch.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's science fiction. It's time travel.
I don't know, because it's even British people, and everyone, British people are so charming.
If there's a good reason to not like either, I don't know it. Because I like cosplay and Doctor
For me,
Who.
cosplay especially. I don't know why guys wouldn't like cosplay.
The guy who's married likes cosplay and Doctor Who. Just wanted to mention that. Do go on.
But yeah, cosplay, it's like, not to be a stereotypical guy, but I mean, it's a lot of beautiful women dressed up like your favorite characters. Like, as a geek, why would you not like that?
Yeah.
It does not make any sense. And then to dress up as cosplay, like literally, this sounds, I don't know, you can sound lame or cool depending on how you feel, but you go into Comic-Con and you're dressed up like you're a rock star. Everyone's like, oh, I want to take your picture. Oh my god, that's so cool. Oh, that's kick-ass. Literally the character and the costume's also kick-ass. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. And I mean, it's
Well,
like,
you do Green Lantern, right?
well, I've just done kick-ass.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's like people love it. It's a lot of fun. And especially for me, because I'm so goofy, and I'll pretend like I'm the character, and I'll quote lines of other people's cosplays. Like, it's just like a really fun way to interact with people. And especially if you're someone who's not as outgoing, it's like people are going to come up to you and start conversations. And it's just good. It's a good social thing, and it's just fun. Like, I don't know. I honestly... Yeah, I don't know why. The only things I can think of why someone would not like cosplay, they're like, oh, well, that's not actually the real way the costume is. You didn't do it. Like, all the, I don't know.
The screen accurate, like,
Yeah.
I must precision horror type of things. But those aren't the people that object to it. My theory on the guys that object to it are, A, it looks hard, so it's more work than just buying a t-shirt, and oh no, heaven forbid I put any effort into something, and B, there's that shyness thing where you were just saying, like, people will come up and talk to you. Well, if you're antisocial, which a lot of people that are in geek culture are, there might be that fear of having people come up and talk to you. This is just me theorizing. I do not have this problem myself. I know you're shocked.
It could actually work in that regard. Just to bring up our good friends, the furries, when in that episode when you mentioned how people, they dress up as the furries because it makes them seem like less intimidating, and people will see, oh, hey, here's a furry creature, I want to talk to them. It's the same way with cosplay. It's like you're gonna bring attention to yourself, and even if you don't want to talk to somebody, I don't know, cosplay is Snake Eyes. He doesn't talk. And then you're in character. No one can fault you for not talking.
Yeah.
Or just have a character that doesn't have a mouth. I don't know, something.
Like the movie Deadpool.
Yeah.
I was actually about to say, although Deadpool's if you're
Rocket
gonna
Deadpool.
cosplay Deadpool at a convention, you better actually be clever. Because people like me with a camera will come up to you, because I'm on a couple of other shows as well. I know you're shocked. And we'll try and get into a conversation with you in character. Deadpool in particular, people do that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Be prepared, because if you're the Deadpool, there's like, what? Then that's gonna go on the internet somewhere. I'm sorry, dude.
If you're not yelling pineapples or something to that effect, keep it moving.
Yeah.
So, I hope that helps out. Please acknowledge that fandom doesn't have to be just about the movies you watch and the video games that you play, and maybe a little bit of comics. There's so much more. It's like an onion, as Shrek would say. There are layers.
Layers, donkey.
But these onions won't make you cry.
Why can't life be like cake? Everybody loves cake.
I do love cake.
I actually am going to be making a cake for Marvel Week coming up soon.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That sounds marvelous. No, knowledge gone.
Alright. His mutant power apparently is very lame breath.
Way to blow, no breath.